Hi, and welcome to the Flex with Aaliyah. Today, I'm talking about Beast Games episode 2 and 3. Really, it's the last challenge of episode 2 and the main challenge in episode 3. Talking about it with me today, I have Micah. She was a contestant with me on the show and went relatively far. So thank you, Micah, for joining us.
No problem. What's up, everybody?
So on episode 2, it is the 4 floors challenge. And if you want to know more about that, check out our previous episode where we talk about it. And Micah's on there giving her experience of what went down. But at the end of episode 2, there are 4 teams left. And it ends with Mr. Beast telling them that they need to select a captain that will be offered a bribe. So these 4 teams have to elect somebody to represent their team that the masses are hoping won't get swayed with money. And Michael's going to tell us about that challenge and how it went down from her perspective.
All right. Thank you, Aaliyah. So that challenge was interesting for a few reasons, and we all kind of laughed about it once it was over. But keep in mind, before this challenge, we all had been living in the city for, I don't know, maybe 3 nights at this point, and we had been living in a hotel for a few nights before that, and we haven't had to spend a dime of our own money. We haven't even had access to check our bank accounts. We haven't had to pay for food. They were doing our laundry. They were giving us fresh uniforms every morning, fresh underwear, bras, entertainment, anything we needed. They even had wranglers walking around with wagons full of snacks and protein and electrolytes. They had bug spray. They had a little nurse station with headache medicine or dry shampoo, anything we needed, they had provided. So we all lost touch with a sense of reality, especially in terms of our finances. So the whole vibe is very strongly felt with do not be the reason someone else gets out. Save, try to win, but don't win if it means you're sacrificing somebody else. So that was kind of the black sheep. If anyone was willing to do that, like you don't want to associate with them. And pretty much everyone very strongly felt this way. So then whenever we had to choose team captains, I was on the yellow team and we chose Jeremy, or some people know him as Polar Bear. And I was solid. I didn't think for a second that he was going to push the button. I wasn't worried at all. He is very strongly proud of his integrity, or values his integrity, I should say. And he's a great guy, solid all around. And I didn't know Harrison. I kind of knew Dino and I knew Twana, which were the other team's captains that were chosen. I didn't think for a second Twana would push it. And I really hoped Harrison or Dino would. I was really hoping, but they didn't even flinch. They didn't consider it for a second either. And it just goes in line with this like weird altered reality that we are living in. And so they started the bribe at $0 and then it slowly increased. And then he's like, all right, it's going to increase even faster and then faster. And then you can see on the show how they have the number displayed and we're all standing at the bottom, just staring up, looking at them. And we all kept saying, I bet it's going to get to 1 million, bet it's going to get to 1 million. And it did. And still, and you'll find out at the very beginning of episode 3, nobody pushed the button. And we weren't surprised. As contestants, we weren't surprised that no one pushed it. We were hoping another team would, because that would eliminate the entire team. And if the captain pushed it, they would get the money, eliminate their team, but they would stay in the game. So they would still be in the game, live another day to compete. But none of them pushed it. And so we were kind of bummed that no other team got out, because that's 60 more people now who were not eliminated that should have been. After that game, we had our late night or early morning, whatever you want to call it, meal. And I remember sitting by Mac, and Mac was just like head in his hands in disbelief and couldn't believe that no one took the bribe. Like, he was not expecting it. I don't think anyone on the Beast team was expecting everyone to turn down the $1 million. And it was something we all kind of joked about the next day. Like, when people watch this on TV, they're not going to understand. The whole vibe is don't get other people out. And it was 5 million or bust. Like, we had lost such a sense of the value of money. $1 million seemed like nothing because we were competing for $5 million. And so it just didn't really hold that big of a weight. And I don't think the Beast team was expecting that because we're all there for, to compete for money. Apparently 1 million was enough.
Do you think that if you were selected team captain, you would have taken the $1 million?
No, not a chance. Which is so weird. I mean, now if I were to go back, like if they put me on next season, yes. I was talking to Sifu and he mentioned like so many people were there for two big reasons other than the money: experience and exposure. And the value of the experience of the show was rated way more than an amount of money that we couldn't even wrap our heads around. So we all just wanted to stay in another day, just live another day.
The experience piece makes a lot of sense, which is also what happened when that first bribe came around. We didn't even get to do any challenges. And that first bribe was however many people took it was going to be divided between them, that $1 million. And that was so early on, you didn't even get to do anything. That it sounds very enticing, minus the fact that it's being split by however many people, but you didn't even get to do anything exciting or fun. So I 1000% agree with that. The experience was higher than the money, I feel like, until a certain point, because some people were there for the money. Like, I'm there for the experience, definitely not for the exposure. And I wanted to take home something because I personally needed it and wanted it. And I was talking to Sam, who's another contestant, and her and I think that maybe, obviously we weren't there for the vibe of what was going on, because sure, you don't want to jip somebody out because, hey, I got eliminated because nobody wanted to self-sacrifice my row, and Sam got eliminated because somebody actually took a bribe and got her eliminated. But the amount that they were offering those bribes didn't seem worth losing the experience or the potential for a higher amount.
Yeah, I agree. Now, if I could go back and take that $100,000 bribe from the towers, I would consider it, because looking back, there were 7 people in my row for that bribe, and the other 6 got out before I did in the city. So, knowing what I know now, it would have been better to take that bribe. So anyway, no one took the $1 million bribe. We all went to bed, got some sleep. I think they gave us the next day off. I don't remember. At some point, they gave us a day off with no games to compete, just relax, eat, sleep, lounge, play basketball. The next day, for the first time during the daytime, we had a game. And that was, the challenge was get in a team of 3 and do the potato sack race. And at this point, all my close friends had been, or not all of them, but a lot of my close friends had been eliminated. Like, as soon as I make friends again, they get eliminated. And so I had to kind of wander around like a lost puppy and find 2 people who would take me in. So I found a guy and girl duo, and they let me be their third person for the sack race. And we came in dead last in our heat. And Jimmy told us, get in groups of 3. You're not going to be competing for like a consequence. You're competing for a prize. So it was very laid back, just get in a team, whatever. And so we did the sack race. Our team got dead last. The team who got first got to stay in, what did they call that room? That building that was off by itself.
They called it like the AT&T room, something like that, where everything was that pink color. It was either AT&T or T-Mobile, and they got immunity and kind of like a chill luxury room, we'll say.
Yes, and then even more so, they got exempt from the next game. And so in our teams of 3, we then had to handcuff ourselves together. And in the hot sun, because Toronto was hot during the day and cold at night. So we're all drenched in sweat, handcuffed to our teammates, not knowing what the game was. But he did tell us of the three of us, one person would be eliminated by the time we come back to the city. So we got on the bus. They drove us to the place where the game was held, and it was the cubes where we were each team of three was put in a cube that was red on the outside and white, just all white on the inside. And he told us we had 5 hours to decide who was going to self-sacrifice to save the team. And if no one eliminated themselves, then the whole team is out. And you have 5 hours to do so. So my group and actually, I want to backtrack for a little bit. In the city, they had billboards, and the billboards would kind of rotate through different pictures. And the pictures were kind of hints of what we would be doing, but kind of not. It was more like in hindsight, we would be like, oh, that's what that billboard meant. And so in the city, they had a billboard, and it would kind of flash through. You know, they're electronic. It would show one billboard for like 5 hours and then show a different one. And the billboard had a red phone, and it said, ask for anything. And I think that's what the title of this game was, Ask for Anything, because that's what the billboard said. But before that, when we were still in the hotel, before we ever filmed episode 1, we had to fill out a form online. And one of the questions was, if you could ask for anything, what would you ask for? And I put a horse. And because I would love to have a horse again. And so fast forward now, we get to the boxes and we're sitting in it and we still don't know what we're doing. We just see it's an all white insane asylum box is what it felt like, with a red phone. And then after they got everyone in, Jimmy explained the rules. Someone has to self-eliminate, but using the red phone, you could pick it up and ask for anything. And when the buses were pulling up to this, someone's like, look, there's a horse tied up outside. And so I was like, that's my horse. That's the horse that I said I wanted. So once the game started, first I asked for Starbucks because I had a terrible headache. Side note, it never came. Then the second time I was able to ask, because you could only ask for one thing per person, then you had to hang up, and then someone else was allowed to pick it up, wait for someone to answer, ask for their one thing, hang up, and so on. So by the time I asked for the horse, someone else had already asked for the horse. So the horse showed up at the box next door to ours. And I was so bummed because that was my horse. But you didn't get to keep anything except like the people who got tattoos. They got to keep their tattoos. I know. I never would have thought of that. That was hilarious. We asked for puppies and dogs, and we asked for chairs, but they brought us cots. So we each had a cot to sit on. And what else did we ask for? Pizza, Taco Bell. I mean, we mostly asked for like food and coffee. The game starts, and the two people who I was paired up with, I didn't know it at the time, but they actually had been best friends since Vegas when we filmed the YouTube video. And they both spoke Spanish, and I do not. And so they would, kind of say something to me and then like very quickly mumble something under their breath to each other and then say something to me. And so I was very suspicious from the get. And like, even walking in there, I'm like, it's me. I'm doomed. Like, it's gotta be it. But Jimmy, we could figure it out from any way we wanted to. Like, one team ordered sandwiches. That's how Harrison got out. He got the one with like no meat or double meat or something. So literally anything you wanted to do. And so my teammates kept asking me like, what would it take for you to sacrifice yourself? And I just kept sticking with, if I lose a random game of chance, fair and square, I will self-eliminate. If I don't, I won't. And I was with a girl and a guy. The girl, Joy, kept saying, well, it's not going to be me. I'm not going to do it. I will not eliminate myself, no matter what. It's not going to be me. It's got to be one of you two, or we're all going home. So I'm like, oh, lovely. And then the guy wouldn't answer the question. So neither of them would, and I would ask them, like, what about you guys? What would it take for you to eliminate? And they just wouldn't answer. They wouldn't agree to it in any way, wouldn't answer. So we just sat there for a really long time. And I kept like, what about dice? We could throw some dice. We could draw a card. We could pick straws. We could pick rocks out of a bag. Like, we could do rock, paper, scissors. Like, And every time they just they didn't like shut me down. They just didn't reply. They were not giving me any feedback. And a few hours in, Joy was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We had food back. They brought us food, our lunches. And so we had paper bags in there. And we had markers at that point because we were coloring on the walls. And she's like, I'm ripping up 3 pieces of paper from this bag. I'm putting a dot on 2 of them and no dot on 1 of them. And we're going to draw it. And whoever draws the one with no dot is going to self-sacrifice. And so I'm like, cool. But in my head, knowing if she drew the one with no dot, I know she wouldn't self-sacrifice. So my only hope was for the guy to draw it for Juan. And luckily he did. But I kind of had this calm confidence inside where I'm like, you know what? If God wants me out, he wants me out. Like, for some reason, he saved me on the floor challenge. Like, my team was out and then it wasn't. So I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to worry anymore. Like, I already went through the emotions of being sad for being eliminated, and then I wasn't eliminated. So it's fine. So then we drew it, and then Juan got the one with no dot, and he was pretty bummed about it. And it was actually, even though I had just met them, it was still pretty emotional. So he drew it. We still had like 4 hours left or 3 hours left. And he's like, I'm not going to eliminate myself, though, until the pizza comes. We're going to have pizza together one last time. And I'm like, that's fair. Well, multiple hours go by. We don't know because we can't see the clock. And the pizza still hasn't came. And Jimmy gave us a 30-minute warning or something like that. So we knew it was almost time to go. And finally, pizza came. Now, we ordered 1 pizza. I don't remember what we had on it. We ended up getting 4 pizzas, and none of them were the ones we ordered. But we sat and ate pizza, and then he still kind of took his time. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's not going to do it. I really thought he's not going to do it. Like, we're all going home. And then last minute, we were one of the very last ones. And last minute, he did clink it on. And I cried, and I'm not a crier. I don't know why I cried. I was just so relieved that he did it, and thankful that he did it because he didn't have to. There's no obligation. And then Nolan came in and Tariq, and they interviewed us with the camera crew. And then we stepped out. And then we made it. We got to go back on the bus. Whenever I got out, so if whoever's watched the show, Landry is her name. She's just the sweetheart of the show. Like, this young girl, she's beautiful. She has the sweetest voice. She's from Texas. She has her own online boutique and just the nicest person. She self-sacrificed in that game, and she's the one where they had the puppies and the princess dresses and the balloons, and they had the party. And it was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. When I walked out of the box, I just saw her in her little princess dress and tiara holding the cutest puppy, and then she was just crying her eyes out. It was like the most adorable, sad sight I've ever seen in my life. But she is so sweet. So I'm glad they showed her. Like, she deserves the TV time. But it was just it was a really emotional. Luckily, my box didn't really get that emotional, but some of them really did. Some people got angry and nasty, and they didn't show it, probably for the best. But I've heard some rough stories about some of those cubes. So one of them was the 3 people. 2 of them were husband and wife, and then another girl was in there. And the girl is like, listen, I'm not going to sacrifice myself to save both of you. One of you guys need to sacrifice to save the other. And she's like, it's not going to be me. Like, I'm not going to do it so both of you can move on. Like, you guys will have the odds are still in your favor. One of you do it, you can guarantee the other person moves on. And the husband got nasty. He started throwing insults. Like, she's a divorced mom, and he was just saying mean things about her being a single mom. And it was just, she said, my friend said they were like toe to toe going at it. And she said the wife was real quiet and real sweet and just kind of sat in the corner. She's like, it kind of gave insight on what their home life is probably like, where the wife just does, kind of what she's told. And the husband did not like a female standing up to him whenever they got back, and no one sacrificed. So they all three got out. And so when they went back to the city to collect their things, this girl's bunk was right next to mine, and we were good friends. And like I was going to say, as soon as I get friends with someone, they get out. So of course she got out because at that point she was one of my besties. And so I asked her about it, and she's just so sweet. And she's like, yeah, like it kind of got pretty nasty, and he was just saying things and da da da. And she's like, I like stood my ground, but I wasn't like insulting him back. Like that's, I'm not like shady or anything like that. And so we were kind of talking about it. And then I walked outside of the dorm room, and he was out there just going nuts. That effing B can go to hell. That, but like just on and on, insulting this girl, like painting the wrong picture of her for sure, because she is not like that. How he was out there painting this picture, and that rumor that he started kind of stuck because I heard multiple people talk about it. And I'm like, no, just because he's louder doesn't mean he's right. Here's what I do know about her. Like, I wasn't in the box, but here's what I do know about her, and what he's saying is not right. I'm trying to think of other stories that I heard. The one where Sammy just didn't click it in time. The girl and she's so sweet. I felt so bad for her. She's like a yoga instructor or something. And she's really cool. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the other two people in her box were so calm while this was happening. But it just goes to show we don't see the clock. And you really have no idea what time, even though on the show, it looked like he said, okay, 10 seconds or something. I don't know if he said that in real life. Like, I don't know if they actually had that countdown or not. Because you would think they would be a little more eager to get that locked in.
And what'd you think about the brothers who teamed up on that one woman?
Okay, so I had no idea. I didn't know them. I hadn't interacted with them at all. And so I didn't know that story. But watching it, I couldn't believe it. I mean, partly it's like, okay, you don't know these people when you sign up. And they seem like the kind of people who's able to shut that off. Like, clearly they would have taken the $1 million bribe if they would have been selected as a team captain. So, but they seem to be making a lot of friends. Like, everywhere they would go, I would hear him yell Habibi, which means my love in Arabic. It's like a pretty common word. And so I would hear it everywhere I go. And I kept making a mental note, like, oh, I want to go talk to them because I spent a month in Egypt and I took Arabic in college. And like, like I kept trying to make it a point to go talk to them. I just like never did. Now I'm glad, because I would have fallen for their lies too. The mind games that he played, how he tricked her, which like good on him for like playing to win, because that's why we signed up. Was there another way for him to do it? Probably.
I just don't think she should have. She should have stuck to her ground with saying, I'm not going to do it." Then all three of us are going to be eliminated, because that was pretty shitty for the one brother to be like, "I'm not going to play." Sure, I get that, but fine, you're not going to play. I'm not going to play, and then we all go home, which is fine. Then it's even.
Yes, yeah, they got lucky that they were with her. And I'm sure she was I was also feeling vulnerable in the sense of like, you're surrounded by people you don't really know. There's no comfort zone. You can't text anyone from home. You can't like talk to any friends. You can't ask for advice. Like, even though you're surrounded by people, and even if you're an extrovert like me and you're surrounded by extroverts, you're still alone and you don't know who you can trust. And we hadn't really had games where you needed to trust people up until this point, like verbally trust people. Like, you hope people aren't going to eliminate, take a bribe to eliminate you. But like, this is the first time it was like a social way that you needed to rely on people. And she just wasn't ready for the deceit. And I probably wouldn't have been either.
I can see why it would rub people the wrong way, because it bothered me. But I would have just stuck to my guns. Same thing that the story you told with the husband and wife. Her logic made sense. There's two of you playing for the same thing. One of you stay and the other sacrifice, so that way we both have a shot. Logically, that makes sense. There was another team where someone said that they would play a game and they lost and they didn't go. And that does suck, but I could also see that you hope to win or you didn't like the game that you played. Like in your scenario, I'm like, why would I play the game that you chose? They're trying to be in control in a situation where they don't have control. I don't know if I would have lost and been like, sure, I'll lock myself up. I would have wanted to play a full-on skill game, not like, let's roll the die. Like, let's play Monopoly. Let's play an actual game, whoever wins, or something like that. Only because then I feel like it's more balanced with skill as opposed to chance.
Yeah, see, I only wanted chance because I don't know their skills. And the guy I was with was like 6'3", so what skill, any like physical skill, he has a leg up on, unless it's like handstands. But then you have to get everyone to agree to it. And like, if they think you're probably going to win, they're not going to agree to it.
That's the problem. And that is why I would expect more people to just be like, fine, we're all going home then. And when you do that, people start to worry that now their chance is over, that they would possibly participate.
Well, keep in mind, we got in groups as friends. Like, we didn't get in groups knowing that we would be competing against our teammates. So a lot of the groups were friends. So they didn't want everyone to go home. They didn't, you don't want yourself to go home, but you don't want the other people to go home either. Where in my situation, I was with people I didn't know. Like, I think I was the exception there.
Yeah, but I could see some of those friendships being superficial. They're not really deep friendships. They're, oh, I liked you and we sat together, we sat near each other, and you don't really know the character of the person yet or anything of substance, really. You might think you do. Everybody's playing a game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was one where, you're right. Yeah, there was one cube where the two of the girls in it were besties, like, since Vegas. And right away, and I saw one of them when I was going to the bathroom, and she's like, so-and-so right away said she's not going to eliminate herself. It has to be one of us. And they were like good friends. And that was her friend saying, not going to be me. Won't do it. So I'm like, ooh.
There was that other team where it was a male and female who were friends. I don't know if they were a couple or not. And there was a third person. They were playing Uno. And the guy got out and then cheated. He looked at her cards and told his friends. And I was like, that is shitty. I would ask for a rematch. No way. And how could that person not tell? There's no way I would let the guy who finished first stand behind me if I knew they were that connected.
I know. But then if you accuse them of cheating, they're going to team up against you. Like, you're on thin ice.
You're on thin ice anyway.
Not that if they team up against you, it could make you, yeah.
But the thing, it doesn't matter. Either you all leave or two people or one person leaves. If you accuse people, what's the worst that's going to happen? All three of you go home and you go back to your life.
Or you make someone mad, and then the next game, because you never know what the next game is going to be. Like, we're still waiting for there to be games where you, like, rely on somebody. So, like, we don't know what part the social is going to be, and you don't know who their friends are. If they're going to go back and be like, this girl thinks we're all cheaters, so if we have to vote, or.
In that particular game, if you stand your ground and no one eliminates, it doesn't matter. There is no more game for anybody. So you can accuse them and not go in. And just because you accuse them doesn't mean people are going to believe you.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I believe this person? Like, so many people, I don't know who to trust or not trust. So even though if I'm acting like I trust you, I probably don't, because I don't know you that well. And you might build a connection, absolutely, and then you're going to start to trust people. But at what level? Because you know it's a game that only one person's going to win. And this particular game, you need to have enemies and friends, whether they're real or fake. So you can pretend not to like somebody, but really kind of like them or their style or play smart. You need that in this game. That's the whole point. That's what Mr. Beast does. He pits you against each other, pits you with each other, and then you have to choose what you're going to do, which always looks really selfish because you're only there for you. Even if it's for a family member or something like that, it's still for you. And everybody has a story or a reason that they're there. So that was the cube challenge. And for those who got some of the sacrifice earlier, did they get to leave the cube right away, or did they have to stay in there?
I think they stayed because the people who So like if a cube, like the first cube eliminated, he, put the handcuffs on. The other two people walked out and sat on a bus and waited on the bus for the rest of us. I don't know if any buses like went ahead once they were full, but I don't think they did. Like I think all the buses lined up, so they just sat on the bus for 5 hours and waited. And so I think the people in the cubes also had to wait.
That sounds awful. Waiting on the, at least you know you're safe, but like staying on the bus for 4 hours after that. Oh, geez.
And that bus was the quietest bus ride I had been on. I mean, people were beat up mentally, emotionally. Like they did not want to talk.
That is tough.
Yeah.
Something to learn and take with if you ever go back to another episode, even though they always change the rules, but you know there's going to be one where you pit your friends against each other. That's just what he does.
Mm-hmm. And it was rough that for the people who were on floor 2 the day before, the less is more, they had to do this back to back, convince people to eliminate and then convince people to eliminate. And I know that took a toll on some people.
Yeah, that's a lot to handle. It's a lot to handle because you're either convincing people or you're actually fretting that you're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And in the grand scheme of things, going back to your real life isn't that big of a deal, only because you've been surviving on that platform for so long. You just had hopes or aspirations to go further, and that's the part that's disappointing, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think more people there wanted the exposure more than they wanted the money.
Oh, I can agree with that, because I remember in Vegas, people were doing the most ridiculous things just to get FaceTime, and they didn't even show you the FaceTime. And some people, even now on the forums where people were talking, they just wanted that FaceTime to get noticed for acting or shows. I mean, that was not my purpose. Was that your? I don't think that was your purpose. Most of the people that I actually engaged with, that was not their purpose. But I can see that. So that concludes episode 3. You know, we started off talking about the end of episode 2 with this big bribe that was a shocker, and they left us a cliffhanger. Nobody took this $1 million bribe. I think looking back on it, some of the people might wish they had, and you might come to realize that when you watch the next several episodes.
I will say Harrison, who did not take the bribe and then got eliminated in the cubes the next day, after he was out, I saw him and I'm like, oh man, like, no. And he's like, it's okay. It's okay. Like, I will get more exposure. You know, I can make more from this, more than $1 million. Like, it's okay. I didn't take the bribe. I'm not upset at all. It was a great time. And he really is just a stand-up guy. He seems like just really is a man of integrity. And he wasn't upset in the slightest that he showed. I mean, he might have cried on the airplane home for all I know, but so good on him for that.
I sometimes question those people, not because it's not honest, but there may be a part that they're presenting out to the world that, hey, I'm okay with it. I'm going back to my life as is, and I was fine, because we all are. But you had the opportunity to change things. There was something that you wanted to do with it, and you didn't get it. Sure, maybe he will get something more than $1 million for whatever he's going to do in the future, possibly. I think sometimes it's a dissociation or cognitive dissonance. You're telling yourself one thing, so you learn to be okay with it, even though you're kind of upset with it. And I could, after this show or during the show, I could see a lot of people doing that. Be like, yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal. You know, I'm going back to my great life. Inside, you're fucking upset. You're upset. You're mad. You're pissed you didn't take that. Now, that's not what you want to portray. You're trying to rationalize that you're okay with it. Some people may very well authentically be okay with it. The majority of people, at least from my background in psychology, they're not okay with it. They say it, but they're not really.
Right.
So that concludes our episode today, where we were talking about these games, the end of episode 2, where they were offered $1 million bribe that was a shocker where nobody took it. And we didn't see that until the very beginning of episode 3. And then that next challenge was the cubes. Ask for anything challenge, where 3 people went into a cube where one person had to stay and the other 2 left and remained in the game. However, that wasn't the full case because if nobody self-eliminated, everybody in the cube was gone. So that kind of sums up the challenges that we talked about today. And then another time, we're going to hear more from Micah about the next challenge. So thank you, Micah, for tuning in.
Thanks for having me.
And we will catch you guys next time on The Flex with Aaliyah. Remember, like, subscribe, share, and of course, stay flexy.